mean we're on when the red light's on?
Are they on? Are they on now?
Hello.
Right. Who should I, so I just don't, I need to skip that.
I ain't gonna say damn nobody. If it's all four against you, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I mean, I don't have no problem.
The
I think it's sorry as can be.
January 17th, 2023 regular meeting of the Haywood County Board of Commissioners. Our pastor isn't here tonight, so we'll have a moment of silence after our Pledge of Allegiance. So if everyone please stand for the pledge. Okay, our next order of business will be public hearings, but we do not have any tonight. And after that, we have a public comment session. I do have some folks that have signed up to speak. If you would, limit your comments to 3 minutes. Tracy will keep up with the time for you, and she'll let you know when your time's up. And if you would, just kind of finish your thought after that. And audience members may not address the board at any time during deliberations. Okay, so our first person signed up to speak is Kay Miller. Welcome, Kay. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be able to speak tonight. And I'm going to be very brief, but my name is Kay Miller. I live in Waynesville. And I am not asking, but pleading with you not to take any more money to help promote this COVID vaccine. There are many here tonight who spoke out early against the dangers of the so-called vaccine, and pretty much everybody thought we were crazy. But now even the CDC is reporting at least a connection to some heart issues, strokes, in those people who've been vaccinated. And I know you've heard in the news of late, particularly a lot of athletes dropping over dead. Some, thankfully, spared their lives. But I just want to say, in general, please stop the nonsense. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kay. Our next person signed up to speak is Janet Presson. Welcome, Janet.
Good evening. I'm Janet Presson, and I'm here about agenda item number 7. I read through this the Department of Public Health agreement addendum. I read it very carefully, and it is a mess. It looks like we're going to get another $75,000 worth of COVID funding for Haywood County, and we do not need that. The concerns I have, it particularly seems to target eligible children and adolescents under 18 years of age, and they even mention in this about school-based vaccination, which makes me crazy. On page 2, the very first sentence states, to reduce the spread of the SARS-CoV-2 virus and its variants and bring an end to this pandemic, we need to vaccinate as many people as possible as soon as possible. Okay, the CDC has already said that the vaccines do not keep you from getting the virus, and they do not keep you from transmitting the virus. So this is just like propaganda BS. This means nothing. This sentence is just garbage, and we need to understand that. If you haven't already heard about all the injuries and deaths that are associated with these vaccines, then you're living in a cave in like Afghanistan or somewhere, died suddenly, cardiac issues, myocarditis, pericarditis, blood clots, neurological issues, autoimmune issues, and it's happening here in this county. I have had so many people contact me about babies and children and adults and elderly folks who have gotten a vaccine or 2 vaccines or vaccines and a booster and then ended up with serious issues or died. And a lot of these deaths are within days 0, 1, and 2 of when the vaccine was given. I asked the health department, I sent to the vaccine officer, well, actually the vaccine office RN, I sent her an email December 20th asking for information that I know she's required by federal law to keep. I just wanted data. I don't want anybody's personal information or anything I can identify who's who, but I asked for some basic data on people who have been vaccinated in this county and how many injuries and deaths following the vaccine have been reported back to them because, again, they're required by federal law to keep that information as well. I just wanted that information as a citizen to see what's going on and if they're getting the information that they need. Got nothing back from her, so I followed up on January 3rd, sent it to Ira Dove, Mark Jabin, a few of y'all, and then also back to her. I did get a message back from Ira Dove, and he said, I got your message, and he would get the data if he could. And then I sent a follow-up yesterday, crickets. I don't have that data. But like I said, I personally keep hearing about people here in Haywood County. I think what we're doing is this is going to be $75,000 more of injuries and deaths of Haywood County citizens, and it's unnecessary, and y'all need to be saying no to this. Again, it's proven now. There's plenty of research showing that these things cause injuries and deaths, and we don't need more of that in Haywood County. And finally, you know, they keep talking about vaccine hesitancy. Well, I'll tell you what we need to do to fix that is have vaccines that are safe and effective, and we need transparency and honesty from our government officials, from the pharmaceutical companies, and our public health offices, and we're not getting that. So you're not going to get rid of our vaccine hesitancy, regardless how much money is thrown at us. So please say no until we have something that's safe and effective. I've been called an anti-vaxxer by morons in this county, and I'm not. I'm fine with safe and effective vaccines, but these are not, and we've got plenty of research showing that. Thank you.
Next person signed up to speak is Renee Rickman. Welcome, Renee. Appreciate you coming out tonight.
I just want to say thank you to the commissioners for all the hard work you do and for the things you do that we don't see, because I know from talking to Tommy that you do a lot of things that are behind the scenes, and do appreciate it. I just became aware of agenda item number 7 a little while ago, so I didn't have anything really prepared. But I guess what I want to say most of all, that I think at this point that most of us pretty much have our minds made up. There's a lot of information out there, both pro and con. And we tend to gravitate toward what we already believe. There's a lot of confirmation bias. But there's a lot of information out there. If people want to research, they can do that. I'm concerned about the people who don't do research and don't look into things for themselves. I don't think that there's just one answer that fits everybody, but right now there are a lot of concerns over the vaccine, and I think there's a lot of unknowns. There's things that are coming to the surface that need to be looked into a little deeper, and I just want to ask you to think about 10, 20 years from now, looking down the road. I want to be very careful about pushing something that we still don't know enough about. The information that's coming in, from what I'm seeing, is not positive. There are more concerns now than there were in the beginning. And the money, my understanding is it would be to convince people. I'm very concerned about the focus on children. I'm concerned about parental rights, parents who going to go with the flow. There's these kids, they want to please people. They want to feel like they're doing something good for society. And I think the kids, they don't even know what they're doing when it comes to the vaccines. I mean, do any of us really? I mean, do we really feel like we know? I don't. I feel like there's a lot I still need to learn, but my concerns would prevent me from wanting to push it. I would just urge people to look into it for yourself, and I would like to not see our county invest any more money in pushing this agenda. I think it's a dangerous thing to be pushing right now with the knowledge that we have and the information we have coming in. Thank you for listening to me.
Barry Pepper. Welcome, Barry.
About an hour ago, I received word from someone that the county commission is considering voting $76,000 be appropriated to vaccinate women and children in this county. I thought the person was pulling my leg. Let me read something for you. As a retired airline pilot, retired military pilot, just today, the FAA has very quietly, tacitly admitted that the EKGs of pilots are no longer normal. We should be concerned, very concerned. I know 5 people personally, 2 have died, that will never pass another FAA physical. A girl from Waynesville Middle School, and I won't tell you who her name is if you don't know, is currently fighting for her life with myocarditis after being vaccinated. Concerned citizens of Haywood County have provided this council with numerous fact-based articles about how bad the COVID jab is. Over 3.3 million people have died after getting the vaccine. The vaccine has been proven to be very harmful to the reproductive organs of our young children. Please tell me that you guys won't even consider funding to the tune of any money, period, but $76,000 for our children in this county to be vaccinated. I just am beside myself to believe that you guys would consider that. Thank you.
Anyone else care to address the board that didn't sign up? No. Okay. I'll close the public comment session, and we'll move to constituent concerns. We did have one constituent concern that I would like Michelle Troll was going to inform us about the changes to the state food and nutrition. I guess it's the whatever. However, go ahead.
Thank you for having me here this evening to let you know about a very, very important change that's about to happen in our community. Some of you know what food stamps is, kind of what we used to call it years ago, Food Nutrition Services Program. It's a supplemental program to help our low-income families supplement them with food benefits. It's a federal program, also governed by the state. And they use EBT cards in order to purchase food so that they can make ends meet with their food. During the pandemic, beneficiaries, they received automatic supplements, either as emergency allotment supplements or maximum supplements. If they were eligible for the maximum allotment pre-pandemic, the household received $95 supplement payment. Other households receiving benefits less than the maximum allotment pre-pandemic received a supplement, which is the difference between the household's actual benefits and the maximum allotment for their household size. Let me just give you a good example, because at first it sounds like it's not that big of a deal, but it will affect some of the households in a large way. Now, a good example is a household of 3 who received an allotment of $200 for January 2023. The maximum allotment for a household of 3 is $740. So the household is issued a supplement of $540 for January. This is an additional like $180 per person in the household, which is going to be, they're going to probably look at it as being taken away because they've kind of gotten used to it. So this is where, we kind of need to prepare our county, as far as to know this is going to happen, as part of the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2023, the federal government made the decision to end the extra F&S benefits, even though the federal public health emergency is still in effect. And this is also going to cause a few, concerns with people, because they're going to think, hey, this is still going on. How come I can't still receive benefits? February 2023 will be the last month of issuance of the emergency allotments. In March 2023, benefit amounts will return to the pre-pandemic amounts without emergency allotment based on a person's or household's current eligibility, based upon household income, size, and other federal eligibility requirements and qualifying deductions. So what we're going to be trying to do is make sure that the food stamp beneficiaries, they need to know some information, where to go check their balances on their EBT card. And they can do that by going online at www.ebtedge.com. They can download the EBT Edge mobile app, and they can contact the North Carolina EBT call center at 1-888-622-7328. We will be making sure that our beneficiaries are notified in several different ways. North Carolina DHHS, they'll send notices to all the food stamp beneficiaries, notifying them about the end of the emergency allotments. Notices will be printed and mailed in batches over a series of a few weeks. The press release that went out last Thursday from the state in the afternoon, we have posted general notices on the DHHS F&S website and social media, and we are notifying our partners, food banks, et cetera, around in the area to kind of let them know they may see an increase in people asking for food assistance. We'll also be hosting 2 virtual food and nutrition security summits. We can save the dates, March 2nd, 1 to 4 p.m., and March 3rd, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Now, a lot of the clients, if something doesn't go right, they often would like to appeal this. This is something that they cannot appeal or ask for a fair hearing if it comes to just no longer receiving this additional benefit. But if they believe that they are not receiving the amount of benefits that they should, they still can ask for a fair hearing for that. And they can call the local DSS and speak to a supervisor or their caseworker for that. The local news media notification and provisions of press releases, we've handled that. We're posting general notices on the agency's website, social media, and in public areas of the agency. There again, communication with the local food banks, food pantries, and other local resources providing food assistance have been notified and will be if not all have been yet. And then we're trying to discuss with our clients at all in live person contacts and telephone conversations to kind of pre-warn them of this. We're also going to be having a recorded message on our telephone auto attendant and our worker voicemails, just to kind of put the word out there. And we're going to also provide notices in all outgoing mail across multiple programs. A lot of our clients don't always read mail because it seems like we send a ton of mail, so we're going to really be needing to make sure we put out the word in various different forms and make sure that they understand that. If people may ask, how many people are going to be affected, we have right now 4,802 or so cases, that's per family. The total number of participants in those cases is over 9,000. So when you start adding the numbers up and people going to the grocery store and them not having these extra food supplements, and then if anybody has gone to see the price of eggs lately, we're you know, we all need to really help our clients and understand how to better use their benefits that they have and kind of prepare for this. So if there's any other questions, I can stay a little bit afterwards and help if you guys have any questions or further questions. Yes.
Do you have a dollar amount, how that will impact the recipients in our county, what the total shortfall will be?
Not overall. The one example that I gave to you for the household of 3, I'll go back to that. So if a household of 3, before the pandemic began, based upon their income and their household situation, if they only qualified for $200 a month, then all of a sudden, for a household of 3, for people who normally, we'll just use an example, have no income in their home, for a household of 3, they could qualify up to $740 a month. So if you take away basically $180 per person of that household of 3 away from their food budget each month, it's going to hurt them. So
You think that's the average?
no, yes and no. So it has become more of the average as far as that higher number because pre-COVID, as we all know, more people worked. So they used or received less benefits because food stamps is a supplement of income basically to help people make ends meet. So after COVID, a lot of people stopped working for various reasons. So their income went down, their food stamp allotment went up. So you're looking at what people are used to currently and not pre-COVID because that's been a couple years ago. So it's almost, we're going to have to kind of retrain our people and kind of remind them this is a supplement of food stamps. This is not to feed your family on completely. And a lot of people, they don't understand that. So, but it is something that you have to qualify in order to receive. So, and coming down the line, it could change. It could even be a little bit worse because right now, during the COVID, we have waivers. So there's waivers that are going to be going away once they say that the pandemic is gone, and that's a whole nother issue. So that's about all I have to say unless there are any other questions.
When was the deadline on the benefits going down? End of January?
The end of February, so beginning March, there'll be no more supplements unless they are owed to the household because of maybe applying late or something in the system didn't give them benefits, so then they can receive supplements that way. But there's no retroactive benefits.
Anybody else got any questions? Thank you, Michelle, for coming out and letting us know. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see, Jennifer, do you have any constituent concerns?
I did have something I wanted to mention. I received a couple of phone calls from some folks who live down near the White Oak landfill, and I talked to the county manager about this. Can you give us an update, Bryant, on, they were concerned about debris leaving the trucks after they dump and not pulling those screens back across the bed of the truck. I think it's just the remainder of whatever is in the beds. And if you just give us an update, I know you reached out to somebody with.
Sure. I talked to the general manager of CWS, the hauler that we contract with, and asked him to remind his drivers that the loads all have to be covered coming and going, and he did it that day. And I've also spoke with folks at Republic/Sandtech at White Oak to remind everybody that comes in that loads are supposed to be covered, especially if it's individual trailers or pickups. Every load needs to be covered.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area down there, and I appreciate you reaching out to them. We just want to make sure we stay on top of that for those folks.
I just had one follow-up. I had another individual from Crusoe contact me last week and said they had received help on this third round of EM funding, and they got some more help with the driveway, and so that's good news. That's good news concerning that, so just wanted to report that to y'all.
Good. Do you got anything, Brad?
Oh, one other thing. We all got a constituent concern about some trash down on
209?
yes, and I did get a call from an individual that was related to the person that sent us the email, and I think Sheriff Wilkie took a person down, and the guy was really bragging about that fella, worked all day long and cleaned up that debris, so he wanted to be sure and give you a shout out and say thank you for that.
Yeah, I had reached out to the sheriff, and then I think you coordinated with maintenance and was able to get that done. So we appreciate you doing that, Sheriff. That's a little bit extra to have to do that, and appreciate y'all, you taking care of that, because they were pleased.
I had some as well, but I already spoke with Mr. Bryan about it, and we're taking care of those. Also had a few other phone calls on agenda item number 7, and I'll just address those when we get to that consent agenda. Other than that, I think that's it.
Okay, go ahead, Terry.
I've got a couple before I go into the main one here. I got a call from a landfill down on, well, it's about the landfill down on White Oak. Some people live on Laurel Branch. Said they're smelling the methane gas of a night. And I talked to Brian about it, and I think it's been checked several times, and they, from environmental people, I think couldn't find nothing, but that's the second person I've had ask about that, and I got that to Brian, and he jumped right on it. I appreciate that. And then I got a call, let's see, that one was from a lady that used to work at the landfill down there, but she lives over in Laurel Branch. And I did get a call on the one down at, or matter of fact, it was email on the one down on Richland Creek that the sheriff took care of, and I want to thank him for taking care of that, because the people called me back and said they really appreciated that. And I've got another one that's going to take a little while here, and it's just something that's bothering me, and it's just because it's just ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. I got elected by the people to do a job, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be bullied. I'm not going to be bullied to vote the way somebody wants me to vote. I'm not going to be bullied to. I didn't get elected to do that, and I just want everybody to know that I'm here for all the people in Haywood County. I'm going to do the best that I can do for everybody, and I appreciate everybody calling me. That's got a concern. That's my job. With that being said, back in 2015, I had a massive heart attack. I retired from DACO. I've been in the record business many, many years, and I've had several other businesses. Since 2015, January the 4th, 2015, I've not pulled one vehicle. I've not towed one vehicle. And the reason I'm telling you this is, everybody knows, and it's been beat, a dead horse has been beat to death over this, I owe some taxes. I did dispute some taxes, but I've got a payment plan set up that I went back in September before this started. I went in to set up a payment plan. I said I want to pay what I owe. They laid it down here, and I've got anybody wants to see it, I don't care who it is, they're welcome to see it. I've got everything right here from day one to the end. They beat this to death, and I just want everybody to know. I want to have a town hall, if that's what it takes, to show everybody what's really going on. I'm paying more taxes now than I would have paid at that time if I could afford to pay them at that time, because I'm paying interest. And I don't mind doing that, because I'm a single man. I've got 3 kids that I've raised since they brought them home from a hospital by myself, and I'm proud of that. And I'm not a bit ashamed that I owe these taxes, because I'm paying these taxes. And it seems to be worrying everybody around here to death that not the people in the citizens of the county, but there's other people that it's worrying them to death. I can't figure the difference in me paying my payments every month. They're hollering wanting to garnish my wages. That would be $100 on no more than I owe. I'm paying $300. Why would somebody want to garnish my wages which I don't care if that's what they want to do. I'll be tickled to death. I mean, that's fine. I have no problem with that. The county's going to get their money. I'm not trying to beat the county out of their money. But that does not affect my decisions in doing this job right here that the people elected me to do, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to be bullied by the news or anybody else to do what they want me to do. That's not going to happen. I'm not a puppet to Monroe Miller, which has been put all over the paper. Monroe's my friend. Because I won't say he's not my friend, I'm catching all this slack about it. I'm not going to do that. Just like anybody else in here is my friend. They're my friend. They'll be my friend to the end. I hope. And I'm not a bit ashamed of anything I've got. I put my phone number out there the whole time I was running. The people elected me, and I'm going to do the job the people elected me to do. And I don't think it's right to keep beating a dead horse about it. If anybody wants to see anything, not only taxes, but anything else anybody wants to ask me, they're welcome to ask me. I don't care what it is. I'll tell the truth. It may not be pretty, but I'll tell the truth, I guarantee, because I've not had a perfect past in my life. But if I was young, I'd probably do the same thing again, I guess, but I hope not. But I might do it, but I'm not ashamed of it. And anybody wants to know anything about me, they're welcome to ask me. They don't have to go to digging everywhere else. I've got everything right here from, it was said that I owed taxes for several decades. Well, I've got all of it right here. My taxes are paid up to zero. And when I went and set that payment plan up in September, they laid that down there. And now I've got another one for Ram Dog Enterprises, which is not only mine, which is getting beat to death in the news. It's not only mine, that's LLC. But I'm going to pay it. I set a payment plan to pay it, and I will pay it. I'm glad to pay it. But the thing of it is that they came up with another one when whoever started digging for it, that's spelled a little different. Well, that was not my fault. I'm paying it, but that was not my fault. My LLC is spelled one way. You can't spell it two ways. But that's it. I just want to get that out to the people to know, because everybody's reading, seeing that, and people's calling me and calling me and calling me. They're not mad at me back. They're just calling me concerned about why they keep doing it. I want everybody, I'm going to make it public. I want everybody to know what I owe, whatever. If if they've got an issue with that, I want them to tell me, because I'm here, not here to hide nothing. I'm not going to play no games. I'm not going to be bullied by anybody to vote a special, any certain way. I come up here to do a job for these citizens, and that's what I'm going to do. If everybody else against me, I can't help it. I'm sorry. I'm going to vote what's best for my people and what I think is the best job I can do for them. That's what I was elected to do, and that's what I'm going to do. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to administrative agency reports and presentations. And we have one on the detention center capital planning discussion. And we have Davenport and Company Senior Vice President Ted Cole here tonight to speak to that. And I think you've got a PowerPoint, Ted. Did we get that up and running okay, Tracy? Did we get that up and running?
There we go. Oh. Thank you. Does it show up on y'all's screen okay? Well, good evening. I'm Ted Cole with Davenport and Company. So what's on the screen, you all should also have a hard copy of that in front of you. So one may be easier to read than the other. And there are page numbers in the lower right corner. Just on the front end, a couple of things. We're going to be talking about capital projects, and primarily the detention center, but we're also going to touch on a few other potential projects that are being discussed for county purposes and community college purposes in the future. Not looking for any action from you all this evening. This is informational. Going forward, and I'll cover this in a little more detail at the end, but going forward, we do plan to come back to you specific to the detention center. That project is engineering and design is finishing up, nearly finished, and then the plan is to receive project construction bids on that in late February, early March. And we, as the county's financial advisor, working with your staff, we are working to line up the financing for that project. So assuming that the bids come in at a level that you all are comfortable with and you want to move forward, we're going to have financing options available to you at the same time. These things kind of need to come together at the same time, the construction bid and the financing package. And we have a couple of actions that you all as a county board are going to need to take. Those will occur in late February and early April. So we've got some time, but those are resolutions that you'll consider to move forward with the project and the financing. It also, where you'll hold a public hearing, which is required by state statutes, and ultimately we have to go to the Local Government Commission in Raleigh, who has to approve the debt issuance of any local government. So tonight is informational, but going forward in February, March, and April, we'll be back with these various steps associated with the funding for the detention center. And again, we don't want to get ahead of the project bids. We want the project bids in hand, see where those are, and then you all will make a determination about moving forward, and if so, how we want to finance it. Okay? So I think the information tonight will set you up nicely for being able to make some of those decisions on an informed basis. Topics for consideration, I'm going to cover those first, and we're going to get into a discussion about bond ratings and fund balance. Your existing debt, that is the debt that's on the books today, and then we're going to get into a discussion about potential future debt and capital projects. So as I said, I want to start with a discussion on credit ratings and some peer comparatives, and then we're going to evolve from there. Two kind of key issues on the debt we'll be talking about, something called debt capacity. That is the county's ability to take on debt for whatever project it might be and still be able to demonstrate that you have a sound, responsible financial profile, that you maintain a creditworthiness. So there's debt capacity, and then there's debt affordability. How do you pay for it? And they are related, and I'll sort of cut to the chase of what you're going to see. The county has debt capacity. In other words, it's a very reasonable conversation for you all to be having about considering issuing debt for the detention center project or some other project. You've managed your debt conservatively historically. You're not overburdened with debt from our perspective. The debt affordability is a different question. Like, where do the new dollars come from to pay the annual debt service on this new debt obligation? And that's where we're going to spend a decent amount of time talking through this. Real quickly on the bond ratings, I'm on page 5 on the left. Historically, the county was rated by both Moody's and Standard & Poor's. Those are 2 of the 3 national bond rating agencies. AAA is the highest bond rating that any local government can achieve. You all were a AA3 from Moody's and a AA from S&P, so you're 2 to 3 notches away from AAA. You're in very good company with other counties within North Carolina. The bonds that the rating agencies rated were paid off or refunded, and so the rating went away. So technically, the county doesn't currently hold a bond rating, but it's because the bonds that were rated went away, not because you're not creditworthy or something along those lines. So we very much think of you and see you still in a AA rated level, even though you don't have the rating now. We can always reestablish that rating going forward if we need to. On the right-hand side of this page, we're going to do some comparisons, and I'd focus on that North Carolina chart just for starters. What we've shown you is the number of counties within North Carolina that are rated AA1, AA2, and AA3, ratings very similar to what you had when you were rated by Moody's, and you can see how many different counties held those ratings, and you can see the counties listed in the bottom right corner. So we're going to do some comparisons to those rated counties. And then we're also going to do it on a national basis. That top chart, the AA1, AA2, and AA3 counties across the country make up almost 500 different counties across the country that are rated in that range. Within North Carolina, it's about 42 counties. So you'll see this in a moment in a couple of other slides for the comparisons. And please feel free to stop me at any point if you have a question. Page 6, very briefly, the approach that the rating agencies take to rating local governments like cities and counties. And I'll look at Moody's. You'll see they basically have 4 major areas of criteria. The economy, and they're looking at things like wealth levels, tax base, job creation. That's 30% of the rating. That's something that you don't have day-to-day or year-to-year control over. Those are longer-term initiatives to create a community where people want to come and invest and create jobs and what have you. But economy is 30%. Your financial performance is worth 30% of the rating. The fact that you're in North Carolina County serves you very well. That's called institutional framework. North Carolina is considered a good government state. And then leverage, things like debt, pension obligations, post-employment benefits is 30%. So just give you a little bit of flavor as to the sorts of things that the rating agencies look at when establishing your bond rating. It's not all about debt. Debt is an important part of it, but there are a number of other factors that they take into consideration. All right, we've got a slide on 7 that gives you a little bit of historical perspective on your operating financial performance. And the chart in the upper left, the gold line is tracking over fiscal years 18 through 22. So we have a 5-year look. The gold line is the operating revenues and transfers in for the general fund. And then the bars represent your operating expenses in dark green, your debt service in light green, and then your capital and transfers out in that brown. And you can see over 4 of those 5 years, revenues have exceeded these expenditures, with the exception of FY22. And it's not because of operating, it's because you all chose to make some pretty healthy transfers over to some capital reserves and capital project funds. So you have used some reserves in recent years, but you've used them for one-time expenses, not operating expenses, capital project reserves. You can see in that upper right chart, you continue to operate above your fund balance policy, which is 11% of your budget. You're operating at a higher level. And even in FY22, when you used some reserves, you were still at about 17% of budget. So the fund balance as a percent of budget came down a little bit in 22, but still comfortably above your budget. And again, the use of those reserves was for capital, which is certainly much more desirable than having used reserves for operating. Okay? Comparison of fund balance on page 8. I'm going to focus on the right-hand side of this page only. And that is the unassigned fund balance. That's the component of the fund balance that you all as a board have the most control over. There's not outside restrictions or other approvals necessary to spend it. And that top right chart is measuring Haywood County in that gold bar for your unassigned fund balance in fiscal year 22. You can see that's in the range of about 15 million, give or take, the gold bar. And then we've got those national counties that are rated in light green and the North Carolina counties that are rated in dark green. And you can kind of see how you compare to those medians. Now, this is measuring that unassigned fund balance in dollars. And obviously, there's some very large counties with very large budgets pulled into this peer group. You can see there's somebody within North Carolina who's a AA1 that has $123 million of unassigned fund balance in their fund balance. And so for that reason, we really like to look at the chart directly below that, where we're measuring that fund balance as a percent of your budget. It's a better comparison. And in this case, as we said earlier, you finished FY22 with your unassigned fund balance at about 17% of budget. It had been higher in prior years. And so you're a little below those bars, those medians, But within North Carolina, if you look at those dark green bars, there's some blue lines. The blue lines represent the min and the max within each of those groups. And while you're a little lower than the median, you're not on the low end as an outlier. You're within that range. And I think the expectation is we may see another little pickup in fund balance in the current year. It's a little early to know that for certain, but perhaps. And so we have an expectation that you'll maintain or perhaps improve on the fund balance. And I think the key takeaway here for you all is that you've got a good policy. You have been in compliance with that policy for a number of years. You're still in compliance, and you line up pretty well to similarly rated counties across the country and across North Carolina. Okay. The rest of this presentation is going to be about debt, as I said a moment ago, and we're going to start with the existing debt. This is the debt that's already been approved by this board or prior boards. And on the left-hand side of page 10, what you'll see is all in, there's about $34 million of debt outstanding at the end of the last fiscal year, June 30 of 22. That $34.3 million. That's made up of 4 basic categories of debt. Debt that's been issued for general government purposes, things like social services, health, EMS, animal services facilities. That's 17 million. Schools has a little over 8 million of that debt outstanding. The community college, 3.8, and the Community College Health Foundation tied to the nursing education facility of about 4.5. So $34 million of debt outstanding. All of that is fixed rate debt. It's not changing. The only reason the payments or the interest rates would change is if you all proactively paid it off or refinanced the debt. On the right-hand side, you can see the annual payments for each of those 4 components. This is combined principal and interest. So for the county component, the current year we're in, fiscal 23, you're paying about $2.1 million, and it's going to step down next year to about $1.6 million. It's flat for a year. It steps down to about $1 million, steps down to about $800,000. So there's some step downs in that county debt. The schools is a little flatter, but it's shorter. It doesn't go out nearly as long. It's about $2 million for the next few years. It steps down to $380,000 in 27, and all the school debt's paid off by 28. Similar picture on the community college. The payments on their debt is about $1.2 million a year until it steps down in 26, and it goes away in 27. And then finally, the Health Foundation nursing education is pretty flat, the $350,000 to $400,000 a year level. So you can see individually each piece, each component of the debt, what the payments are, what it is in the aggregate in the far right. And we break it down this way because we basically maintain 4 models for debt affordability, right? We're getting into the discussion about we want to do new debt going forward for whatever the purpose may be. Is it affordable? Do we have money in our budget to pay for it? So we purposely compartmentalize the county model, the schools, and the 2 community college models because there are dollars in each of those that can be used. For example, there are restricted sales tax dollars that the schools can use for their debt payments that aren't eligible to be used for debt payments for the county or the community college. So for that reason, we keep these separate, and we're going to make sure you understand the dynamics of each of them, particularly the county, because it's the county model that the next project that's going to come before you, the detention center, it'll be in the county model. Okay, any questions on that? In the interest of time, I'm going to skip over pages 11, 12, and 13, but what I want to tell you there is there are 3 debt ratios that we look at, that the rating agencies look at, the bank lenders, that help assess the debt profile of the county. And I will tell you, you're in good shape with all of these. As I said at the beginning, the county, while you do have debt outstanding, you have not used it excessively. I would say you have generally a low debt burden as a county, even including the school debt. And these pages basically demonstrate that. And it helps us make the statement that I said earlier, which is the Haywood County has debt capacity. Talking about doing a jail or a library or a community college facility and using debt to fund it is a very reasonable conversation. And that's basically shown on pages 11, 12, and 13. I think the more important discussion for this evening is the affordability discussion. And so what I would suggest we do is we go to page 14, and you may need to look at your hard copy. This is a setup, and the way we look at this is the county model. We start on the left-hand side, which is fiscal year, and we start with the fiscal year we're in right now, fiscal 23. Column B as in boy is the debt schedule for the county debt. You've already seen that. That is what you are already committed to going forward based on the debt approvals that have happened previously. So it's the 2.1 million, it steps down to $1.6 million, and so on. Columns C, D, and E are placeholders for new debt that we're going to discuss in a moment. There's no new debt in here yet. So column F as in Frank is just restating column B. The way you're paying for the debt in this general fund county model is column G. It's property tax revenue, current year revenues of about $2.1 million. And we've assumed that you can continue to make that money available each year going forward. You budgeted that money in FY23, and if you budget that money again in 24 and so on, we want to sort of suggest that we hold that annual budget of property tax revenue flat. What you'll notice when you look at column J is when the debt starts to step down, the annual payment of the debt steps down. If you continue to budget the same amount of revenue from property tax, you start to have a surplus in column J. And that surplus is what's going to allow you to make some progress towards the next project, the next piece of debt. So said another way, because your debt's stepping down, rather than budgeting that decline and moving that property tax revenue somewhere else in the budget, we're suggesting, and I think staff is supportive of this, to hold that property tax appropriation flat at $2.1 million a year at least, and in doing so, we start to have some capacity or affordability for the next project. And in fiscal 24, that's about $450,000. You'll see it steps up over time. So this is an important page because you're going to see in a moment, we're going to start filling in column C with the new debt that's being discussed. And we're going to see how that changes the picture here. Okay? The school model is on page 15. It's set up much the same way. Column B is the existing debt. Column D, we've got their FY23 PAYGO that you all have approved of about $900,000. They have, under column G, one source of funding as well. It's restricted sales tax of about $4.4 million. So you'll see pretty quickly that their debt at $2 million, PAYGO at $900,000, the restricted sales tax is in excess of that. But those restricted sales tax dollars cannot be used for example, county debt payments. It's restricted against doing that. So as a result, this school debt model has a bit more cash flow running through it. And in fact, on the far right column, column P, they've got the ability to build some reserves and deal with those going forward when and if there's a school capital project that they would like to discuss. So it's set up the same way, but obviously the debt profile is different. It pays off much more quickly, and the revenue source that runs through that is a different revenue source, restricted sales tax, and they've accumulated some reserves and a capital reserve balance as well. Lastly, on community college, somewhat similar. On page 16, they've got the existing debt under column B, the nursing education facility debt under column C. We like to break that out because that is actually paid for from the Community College Health Foundation. They've got some PAYGO under column E. So column G is adding all of those up. Their debt is paid for from the dedicated quarter-cent sales tax that was voted. That's about $2.9 million, plus what the Health Foundation has committed to fund on the nursing facility. So somewhat like the school model under column L, they've got some surpluses. They've got revenues running through their model in excess of that debt payment. They've accumulated some reserves over in the far right, column Q. And again, when we start discussing potential projects for them, we're going to look to see how much affordability they have. So again, there's those distinct models that we want to make sure we continue to look at separately. So let's talk about, if I can, we'll talk about the new projects. Page 18. Two county projects that we have included in our analysis. The detention center, as I said, expecting to bid that at the end of February, early March. We're using an estimate of $21.5 million for that project. And then we also have a library project that is assumed to occur in the spring of '24, so about a year out, a little more than a year out, at an estimated cost of $10 million. So two projects that we're going to measure or analyze in the county model. The community college has one project, spring of 2026, an early college building at $37.2 million is the estimate we have. We have no expected or planned projects on the school model. So we're going to move forward here. We're just going to focus on that county model and the community college model. We are also at the bottom of this page, we're going to continue to assume that the pay-as-you-go funding for the schools at $900,000 a year continues, and the pay-as-you-go funding for the community college at a level of $600,000 a year continues. Any questions on those projects? Okay. So if we were to do this and issue debt to support those projects, the upper left-hand side kind of shows you what the county's new debt profile would look like. The dark green is the $36 million you've already issued. That's the existing debt. We know that. We talked about how, you know, each component has a share of that. The light green is the potential debt for the detention center. The gold is the potential debt for the library, and the blue is the potential debt for the community college project. So we've sort of assumed, for the purposes of planning, that these projects move forward and debt is issued to repay them. That's the upper left chart. And on the right-hand side, we've given you our basic assumptions for modeling this debt. A 20-year term of the debt at 5%, something we call level principal, all of which would meet favorably with the Local Government Commission in Raleigh. That's kind of the standard debt profile or debt structure that they like to see. 5% interest rate is higher than the current market. We would expect a 20-year financing to be in the, the mid to upper threes, maybe 4%. At the high end, we're using 5% just to be somewhat conservative. And again, within all these models, we're funding debt for the detention, the library, and the community college project. And whatever year it is that they are currently in the capital plan. So 2023, 2024, and 2026. The ratios that I didn't spend a lot of time covering are on page 20. And the takeaway is that you could do that debt and still be in compliance with potential policies that we would recommend. You would still be able to demonstrate you have a solid and sound debt profile. So that's why I said now a couple times that for the county, it's really not about debt capacity. That you've got capacity. Now, you've got other reasons to decide what to do and not to do, but the capacity side of the discussion, you're in really good shape. And so we're going to finish up on the affordability. Page 21 is maybe one of the most important pages to cover here tonight. And this is that county model, right? Just the county debt. And that debt, the existing debt is under column B as in boy. You've already seen that. What we've done here is we have filled in column C. Column C is the estimated debt payments for the detention center and the library. So you can see in fiscal '24, so the year you're starting budgeting now, the detention center debt would start at about 2.1 million is our estimate. And then the next year in '25, that library debt comes on. Together they go to about 3 million, and then they start to step down. So this is a depiction of what your debt profile would look like were you to pursue both of those projects, one this spring, one next spring. Important to note, we have no operating costs in here associated with either of those. So to the extent that either project comes with an increase in operating expenses, be it staffing, utilities, what have you, we've not captured that. All we're capturing is the debt service associated with the debt. And so B plus C equals column F here in the county model. Column G hasn't changed. We're showing the same $2.1 million a year of property tax that we had in that prior slide. And the difference now is that column J, you see that we start to have some negatives, right? So we had about a $400,000 surplus in 2024 on that prior slide, but now we have that detention center debt starting, and we flip from a $400,000 surplus to a shortfall of about 1.7 million. That is the affordability question for you all, is going forward with this project, how do we want to fund the debt service associated with the detention center? It's going to start in fiscal '24 if we move forward this spring, and it's going to be on the magnitude, hopefully lower, but on the magnitude of about 1.6, 1.7 million, which is the equivalent of just under 2 pennies on the tax rate. Each of your penny on the tax rate generates almost $1 million to you all. And so in terms of equating it to a meaningful benchmark, we've measured that in the column N as in Nancy and are saying the dollars that we need to identify is the equivalent of about 1.7 pennies, whether that's a new penny, a repurposed penny, what have you, wherever you might find it. And I think that'll be part of the discussion in the process going into your 2024 budget in earnest. The next year, there's a slight additional shortfall, right? Because the library's then coming on, just under another 1 penny. So these two projects together, the debt associated with them, have the equivalent of about 2.6 pennies worth of revenue that is needed between fiscal '24 and '25. Okay? And again, operations aren't flowing through this. We certainly recognize that you're not making a decision this spring about the library project. So if you wanted to sort of differentiate between the two, I think it's fair to say the detention center is driving that first 1.7 pennies and the library is the second 0.9. That's kind of how you can attribute them to each project, because you know, the library is about half the cost of the detention center, 10 million instead of 21. So again, not looking for any decisions about this funding plan, just wanted to provide this on the front end as we're going into some of these future meetings where you'll be asked to consider project bids and some financing decisions, and certainly for your budget. Any questions on that page? Okay. Very slight difference on page 22. The only thing we've done for you all is we solve for, rather than 1.7 pennies worth followed by 0.9 pennies, if you measure it all in 2024 pennies, you would need a little over 2 pennies. It's getting to the same place, just a different way to get there, perhaps in one budget process rather than in two. But again, it includes both projects. Not much to see on page 23. That's the schools. Again, we're not modeling a school project here, so there's not a lot to look at there. There's no decisions that will be coming to you as it relates to school capital this spring that we're aware of. So not much to discuss. They continue to have good cash flow because of that strong restricted sales tax performance that we've seen. And page 24, which is the last slide, by the way, this is the community college, and as we discussed early on, there is one project that is least on the planning horizon, I guess I'd say, and that's the the name of the project is now escaping me. Early college building in FY26. That debt service is now included on this page under column D as in dog. Starts in fiscal 27 at $3.7 million. We have their pay-go being funded. So on this page, between their existing debt, the debt that the Health Foundation covers, this potential new project out in 26, and the pay-go, the community college model here with the quarter-cent sales tax that is dedicated can support those projects without having to find additional revenue. So that's a good story when and if that project moves forward. I know that's a lot of info. Again, you might need a little more time with this. We're going to have an opportunity when we come back and we have project bids and a better sense of the financing. I think some of this groundwork will be helpful to you as you start needing to make some decisions there. But I'm happy to answer any questions you might have or any suggestions for updates to this for the next time we're here. Yes, sir.
The jail project said it was, it started out at, 19, and you said the estimate is 21.5? What's the difference in that?
Yeah, and I don't know, I think it was an early estimate in the 19 million and change. I mean, was there some FF&E in there, Bryant, that we decided to include and round up to 21?
Yeah,
Construction costs are going up.
that's one of the reasons behind the 21 and a half. Everything we've bid recently has exceeded what we thought it was. And there is some FF&E, and I'd have to look to see if that includes some of the soft costs that we've incurred to pay ourselves back as well.
So it's just injecting a little bit of conservatism in there, but again, when we get the actual bids, we'll be in a position to do this much more accurately. Okay?
Okay. Anybody need anything else?
I just thought he was supposed to bring us good news.
Yeah.
Well,
We'll take it as good.
I know it's not an easy process to go through at a lot of levels, but hopefully between project costs and interest rates, maybe some of these can improve a tad.
Would it be advisable, I don't know, Brian, this is probably a decision we're going to have to make, but even though our fund balance ain't quite where it probably should be to be at a higher level, but we do have a pretty healthy fund balance. Does it make any sense at all to look at pulling some of that fund balance to help on the front end?
It's always an option. The only concern I have is, and you'll hear more things tonight, we have the good fortune of having a lot of projects coming to Haywood County, but all of them are reimbursable. The EWP program, what you're going to hear from just the other things that we've done as far as waiting on FEMA to pay us back for something. I'm starting to worry about cash flow issues because of that. But that's certainly for the Board of Commissioners to decide.
I mean, no doubt, that's a good point there. I know when we first had the floods, what was it, 5 million? Thank goodness we had a healthy fund balance that we could go ahead and write the check and then wait on the funds to be returned. So, all right, it's something we can look at.
Certainly.
Yeah, in 2009, we didn't have a fund balance that we could go to, so it was good that we had that in 2020. 21.
Fund
yeah.
balance is money, but it's also flexibility to where you
Yeah.
can react to things. And so you just have to weigh those. And I think once we get bids in and we see the interest rate, that goes a long way as well. You
Yeah,
know.
maybe we can kind of nail it down.
It turns into a math problem at that point.
We still have any outstanding FEMA money that hadn't been reimbursed?
I'm sure. I haven't had a chance to ask Christian, but I'm yes.
I think it's a little bit, we've got a big chunk of it back, is that correct? Christian, she's shaking her head yes, so.
Christian's done a good job. That was hard, wasn't it,
I mean, that surprised me to learn that we'd gotten the amount that we did back as quick as we did.
Because we'd heard stories where they didn't.
Right, we'd heard other counties that been in a similar situation that took a long time to get their funds back, so I believe we've been pretty fortunate.
I think that speaks to the county staff and their, expediting the paperwork and getting all those things in order that satisfied FEMA's request, and I believe that reflects well on our county. Because I know some counties that's still waiting on some flood recovery money from 2017. And I think, it's kind of a boondoggle there on getting their proper paperwork in and getting all the T's crossed and I's dotted. So I'm glad to hear that we've got a lot of that back. But I know there's going to be a lot of questions going forward based off your presentation. I know, projections are what they are, and you have to assume a lot, but there are some assumptions in there that I hope will change for the better.
Understood. Yeah, same here. And our current schedule has us coming back on February 20th. And by that time, we will have gotten the bank funding proposals. Perhaps we're closer to having the project bids in hand, and we'll incrementally improve these assumptions and firm them up anyhow, hopefully improve them and firm them up so that when we come to you in March or early April for that final decision, we've got these moving pieces pretty well locked down.
Our strong financial position, you mentioned that we are in the upper end of. That's going to help us when we go to bid on funding.
Absolutely. We and I think your finance staff has been fielding calls and inquiries from some of the lenders and not have had any concerns about the financial profile, the trends. It's all been actually pretty positive, just wanting to know the nuances of the project. So, we hope we'll have a pretty good showing. The bids for the financing come in on January 24th, and that's what we're going to present to you all. I misspoke earlier. We're going to present that to you all on February 6th, not February 20th. February 6th, we'll be back, and we'll have the financing proposals to review. So we'll know then.
I'll add, in case I got lost, we're going actually a kind of a two-pronged approach here. We're looking at private placement with banks. It's cheaper to issue that kind of debt. We'll see what the rates come in at and see if that rate is much higher or lower or better than what a public sale would be, actually full-blown bond market. It's a little bit of extra work for us and Davenport in particular, but we felt like that would give us the best rate. So trying to cover our bases in that fashion.
Okay.
I thought it was a very good presentation. I think you stepped it along so anybody watching or in the room can follow it as well. So I think it's very clear.
Thank you.
Good
Appreciate
point.
it.
Good point.
See you in a few weeks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to a discussion adjustment to the agenda. I do have one. We need to move, speaking of the jail, what we need to do is we need to add an agenda item that says, it's a request approval of a resolution rescinding pre-qualification bidders for detention center jail expansion as item 3 under regular agenda. So can I get a motion that we suspend the rules to do that in a second?
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules to adjust the agenda.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, then, so now I need a motion and a second to add what I just said, to request approval of a resolution rescinding pre-qualification of bidders for detention center jail expansion as item 3 under regular agenda item to be presented by County Attorney Frank Queen, and he will explain that to us.
I will also make the motion to add that item as read to the agenda as item number 3.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. All right. Does anyone have any other adjustment to the agenda? I'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions on that consent agenda?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would like to take item 7. I believe it's been talked about some tonight, and of course I had a few folks that have reached out to me this evening with some concerns about number 7, and I would like to make the motion to pull this from this consent agenda if we can, right? Is this something we can wait on from the financing standpoint? Agenda item number 7.
You want to pull it from the meeting or move it to the regular agenda to
No,
discuss?
let's move, I'd like to move it from tonight's meeting to our next meeting. Is that something we can wait on as far as the grant money?
I'm not sure. I need to ask Ms. Henderson.
Okay. Just some concerns there.
I guess you're asking if there's a deadline on that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, can it wait till next meeting?
That's exactly right.
Yes.
Maybe I didn't word that properly. While they're talking there, there's just some concerns that I have as well, and some questions I have that I would like to ask about the details on that agenda item. And if we can wait, I would like to clarify those and
Okay,
ask
so
the
you want to
questions.
wait instead of just
That's right.
doing it tonight?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I'd like to agree with that, too. I'd like to wait on it, too.
It sounds like if we can wait, you'll second me, is that right?
That's exactly right.
Doesn't appear to be any deadline to notify the state, so I think we can wait till the next meeting if you'd like to have it on that agenda.
Yeah, I would like to make that motion that we pull that item number 7 from the, line item 7 from the consent agenda and move it to our next scheduled meeting.
Okay. Okay, so there's a, is that proper?
Is he going to second?
So there's a motion and a second. All in favor? Any other discussion? Yeah, Terry did. Yeah, I heard him. He probably didn't say it loud enough. I heard him and Brandon.
Tell them, Terry.
I second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. That's unanimous. Okay, we'll move that to the next. And I guess just put that as a regular agenda item, Bryant, instead of consent. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any, all right, beyond, so items 1 through 6 and item 8, does anybody have any questions about those?
What is that exactly, the cost for campers? I know when we had that flood, the county stepped up and provided some temporary campers, I know up around Denver's Trailer Park. Is this just some follow-up?
Which item's that?
Item number 6.
6, okay.
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 Yes, item number 6.
Mr. Chairman, the state actually bought directly from the vendor all of the campers, but we've incurred some costs as far as water, septic hookups, propane tanks, those kinds of things, and we've had some repair work.
Right.
But all of those funds are reimbursable through the state emergency management folks. So we have to front that money. We need a little bit more to make sure that everything's taken care of, but we'll submit it for reimbursement.
Certainly. Do you foresee any further? I mean, I guess what's the end game on those campers? Are they going to be there for some time, or do we know? Or
You know, and you'll hear a presentation later on. Our hope is to get folks in permanent housing
Right.
and outside of those campers. It moves awfully slowly, and there's just a huge shortage of housing right now too. So, but no, we would love to see people out of those and in permanent housing.
Yes.
Tomorrow, but we're working on it.
Agree. Thank you.
I appreciate you asking that, Commissioner Long. I actually had, I guess it is another constituent concern. I had one of the folks that's staying in one of those campers come by the shop right before I come to the meeting and ask about that. Said he would like to eventually get into a regular home, so that's good to hear that, so thank you.
Well, they're very thankful,
was a good
you
thing.
know.
Oh, exactly.
With that said, I've talked to some of those, they're very thankful for how the state stepped up in the county to help them, so.
Yeah, it's an awesome thing that we did, and the landowner willing to do that as well. So
Yes.
really helped out in a time of need.
And it is reimbursable by the North Carolina Emergency Management. Okay, any other questions? I'll entertain a motion. We approve the consent agenda items 1 through 6 and item 8.
Make a motion to
Okay, is there
approve those items with the exception of 7.
okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, we'll move to the regular agenda. And we have to request approval of the subrecipient agreement with North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency for Community Block Grant Disaster Recovery in the amount of $7 million and approval for the county manager to execute all related contract documents. The North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency Community Development Director Tracy Flores?
Flores. Yeah.
How is it?
Flores.
Flores, oh, sorry, Tracy, and Director of Community Economic Development, David Francis. Hey, David.
Good evening, Commissioners. Hope everybody's doing well. Just to give you a little background to bring you forward to tonight's presentation, North Carolina Session Law in 2018 established the North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency to administer Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery funds. The North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resilience, a division of the Department of Public Safety, was formed. NCORE, as we call it, is a partners and can assist residents directly or indirectly impacted by disaster by providing services to restore housing and support communities damaged by presidentially declared disasters or to act to mitigate future disasters. When the President declared the major disaster, Congress may appropriate funds to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, when there are significant unmet needs for long-term recovery. On May 24, 2022, HUD allocated $7,975,000 in CDBGDR funds, funds to North Carolina to support long-term recovery efforts related to Tropical Storm Fred. Haywood County will receive approximately $7 million in direct funding to focus on housing recovery, planning activities to support recovery efforts and maximize benefits for the impacted communities. The county NCORE conducted a public hearing on August 15, 2022, and submitted an action plan to HUD in September 22, which was approved last year. The funds are, we talked about this, these funds are reimbursable what the county uses through NCORE, and we will need to create, those accounts that will happen to, will provide the funds. Will be reimbursed, as I think Bryant and the other gentleman that spoke for Davenport mentioned that having that healthy fund balance there will help us with this recovery. So I'd like to introduce you to Tracy, who's been a very vital, instrumental into us getting us to this point. Her team at NCORE, we meet every 2 weeks, and it's been a pleasure to get to know them and how that they are going to be shaping our community for the next 5 to 6 years.
Thank you, David, and thank you to the board for allowing us to come and meet with you today. There are 2 reasons for my meeting with you today. One is to present, as we had scheduled to present to you, the subrecipient agreement, which is our office's form of contract with the county, where we partner together to expend these dollars that have been awarded to the state by HUD for long-term recovery from the effects of Tropical Storm Fred. And I won't reiterate what all David has shared, but if you'll recall, when we were here in August, we said that we plan to be back about first time this year, first part of the year, with the subrecipient agreement that once we execute that, we will be able to work together on actually expending the funds. It is, in fact, a reimbursement grant that David mentioned, but we have a policy that has allowed us to be very responsive in getting those funds back to the communities that we're working with, because we understand that there are a number of outlays that you have to cover, and we don't want our constraints to be a burden on you. This page just has a bit of a reiteration of the elements of the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Program that I won't go into. Just suffice to say that Congress gives HUD these dollars to provide to communities that have been affected by natural disasters in sort of a batting cleanup kind of way. It's what the FEMA dollars don't cover, what the state doesn't cover, like through OSBM. The idea is to bring a little more money to the table to help the county accomplish those goals that it has for long-term recovery. As David mentioned, we had an initial action plan for the first $7 million approved by HUD, and that is the subrecipient agreement that we are asking the board for permission to have the county execute. But I'm very happy to share with you that at the end of last year, we heard from HUD that they actually have an additional allocation that will come to the state specifically for Tropical Storm Fred recovery. And we don't have the published information yet on exactly how they're going to give us this dollars, but we expect that it's going to result in about $4 million additional dollars for the county to expend on programming for storm recovery. And I'll go into a little more of the kinds of projects that the county is considering on the next couple of slides. But first, let me tell you about the process for getting these additional dollars. The document that we are hoping to execute just covers the initial $7 million, and we can move forward with spending that $7 million as soon as the contract is executed. But the additional funding that is scheduled to come will be disclosed in a Federal Register notice that will be published anytime now. Usually they are in January, but they could be as late as February. And that Federal Register notice will define exactly how HUD is allowing grantees like North Carolina to spend those dollars. Then we have to document the unmet needs, that we have enough unmet needs to spend those dollars. And then what we would do is draft an amendment to the action plan. And then we will get public comment on that amendment proposal. Once everything's copacetic with that, we submit it to HUD, and then as soon as HUD approves that, then we can start spending that additional money. And typically this process takes 90 to 150 days. We submitted the action plan for the initial funding at the beginning of September, and right on the clock, 120 days is about how long it took them for the whole process for us to get approval. So once the subrecipient agreement for the initial dollars is executed, we don't have to wait on approval for the new money. We can go ahead and get moving on the initial. The subrecipient agreement that we are asking you to execute or give permission for us to execute is, like I said, the form of contract between the county and the state or our office, NCORE. It establishes milestones and timetables. It cites the applicable federal regulations and assigns counterparty responsibilities. Here's what the county's going to do. Here's what the state's going to do. Here's how we're going to work together on those, all those things that we have to do to make sure that the federal government doesn't come back to us and ask for money back because we didn't follow the rules. And we've been saying to David and the folks in the county manager's office that our job is to just support Haywood County. You guys know your area better than we will ever know it, and you know what projects need to be done. Our job is to support you in making sure that we stay on the bright side of the compliance line with HUD so that there's no call for the federal government to come and ask for any of those dollars back. And we feel like we've got a great partner in Haywood County for doing that. As far as investing these grant dollars is concerned, what we have discussed with the county staff, and as you guys have mentioned tonight in your discussion, home ownership and rental housing needs in the county are where the county believes these dollars can be best expended and invested to make things better than they were before the storm, and obviously better than they were immediately after the storm. We are planning together, like David mentioned, we have biweekly calls where we advance our plans for projects. And our goal is going to be to, again, hear what the county wants to do and make sure that, for example, if the county wants to fund new multifamily housing, as an example, then we will make sure that we write the offer so that all the projects have an equal opportunity to apply for those funds, and the county has the priorities set that it wants to use to evaluate any applications for those grant dollars, so that we have the documentation to show the auditors when they come in that everything was procured and awarded in a completely compliant manner. In addition to tax credit multifamily projects, there's other multifamily construction that our dollars have funded. We help different communities preserve existing affordable housing. Like if you have an older apartment complex that needs some fixing up, then these dollars can be used for that. We can help local governments acquire property. We can help with renovation and repairs. And we also have a program that's being very successful in the eastern part of the state that actually provides funding to first-time and first-generation home buyers that helps them be more resilient as homeowners, because we supplement their down payment, helps lower their loan payments, and gives them some cushion. So when the water heater needs to be replaced or they need to put a new roof on their house, they have the funds to do that with. The key grant requirements we just wanted to list here so that you understand the parameters within which we have to operate. The HUD has its NEPA compliance requirements, and any project that we do, the site will have to comply with all the aspects of the Environmental Protection Act as it's used at HUD. Time-wise, we need to have all the projects completed by fourth quarter of 2027 because the grant has a 6-year term and it takes about a year to close them out. And the penalty for not completing the projects on time is HUD can come and ask for their money back. So obviously we don't want that. We have to make sure that any housing that we are funding with these dollars is outside of the 100-year floodplain or the special flood hazard area. And we make sure that 100% of the housing units are affordable to households that are earning up to 80% of what's called the area median income. And this number, I'm sure that we could, if we looked on our phones, we could probably find 5 or 6 different numbers that purport to be the average income in Haywood County. And we use the HUD number that just looks at the number of members of a household and how much you can make and still conform to this number. So like right now, it's about $60,000 on the HUD table that we're using for 2021. Which means that as long as a family of 4 is making $60,000 or less, they would qualify for assistance through the grant. And that number moves up every year, you know, as incomes increase. But that's one of the reasons that we partner so closely. We make sure that, like I said, we stay on the bright side of the line in compliance. And that way we can also ensure that these dollars are going to help the folks that don't have as many other options. And so we're very excited about that. The down payment assistance program that I mentioned does have a portion of that could be available for families that earn up to 120% of the average, because as I'm sure you know, homeownership is so hard for folks that have good jobs but haven't had the opportunity to save as much money. And so we want them to have a chance to be homeowners and stay in the community and make it stronger, just as much as we want to help other folks. And then because of the way the grant is structured, Haywood County has been designated as the most impacted and distressed area in North Carolina for the effects of Tropical Storm Fred. So that means that a minimum of 80 cents on every dollar that's spent out of this grant must go to Haywood County projects. So, do you have any questions about the subrecipient agreement, about the process, or about the additional funding that we are going to be getting?
He's over that other presentation
Yes,
a
it
little
does.
bit.
It's
No
very,
problem.
very much appreciated.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely take it for sure. We thank you for all the work that's been put in and the money that's been given to help our folks here, so.
Well, and we're very glad to be able to partner with an organization like Haywood County, and the Davenport Public Finance presentation was just another example of why we know that we've got a good partner in the county.
I know the residents, I know our residents will be thankful, and I appreciate how you are reaching out to people that can afford a home, that want to have a home, and this just gives them that little step up, you know. Some of us, my parents helped me, and some people don't have parents to help them, you know. And I've often thought if I didn't have a little bit of help, if my father hadn't helped me originally, would I be where I am today? And unfortunately, some families can't help. And so it's good that this program's there to help, you know, folks stay in our community, because that's what we want. If you're from here, we want you to live here.
So moving forward, I know there'll be a lot of administrative things going forward, but folks that qualify for this or maybe listening or watching, you know, that's still living in a trailer, who would they contact to try to get in line to get help?
Talking about a camper, is it?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, the ones that got their home demolished, you know, and we had like 300 people at one, you know, the next day we had like 300 people that were displaced, 300 families. I know the Methodist Assembly folks put up a lot of people in temporary housing. I mean, we're just gone. I mean, everything was just washed away. But those folks that are still living in this temporary housing right now, like a camper that we talked about earlier, how do they get in touch with these funds or the administration of that?
So, also, the people have also been assisted by the folks at the, state office budget, folks right here behind us as well, too. So, but anybody can, feel free to call me at, it's David Francis, 828-452-6625 is our main number to call, and be glad to explain and see how, if there's a, project that we can help people fit in. Too, because there's things that we're looking at. We're looking at some greenfield construction, bringing places, bringing some new housing in, helping with repair and renovation, as Tracy mentioned. So there's going to be various things. We're looking at a LIHTC project that was approved for Waynesville. That will house, I think, 84 units for senior housing behind Ingalls, another project. So we're looking at various different projects through our partners, through Mountain Projects and Waynesville Housing Authority, Habitat for Humanity. Ron Newell's here for Habitat for Humanity. So we've got different partners that we're going to be working through to try to make sure that we are expending these dollars in as many places as we can throughout the community.
And I would just like to add that we have some great examples of potential projects, and what we'll do is make sure that we make that opportunity public, and so that all the projects that maybe we haven't heard about yet have an equal opportunity to apply for the funds, because we don't want the county to miss out on a really good project that maybe they haven't heard about yet. And we'll make sure there's a level playing field for folks that are interested in that. On the individuals that would be served with a down payment assistance program, we will make sure that there is public advertisement about those funds being available. So again, everybody has plenty of advance notice and an equal opportunity to access those.
I'm thankful the state has this program. So, the federal government, when they were here, we didn't feel like we got a lot of help from them, but we felt like we got a lot of help from the state. And I know these are pass-through dollars from the feds, but it seems like the state can help the local, our local communities a lot better than the federal government can. So that's another, I just wanted to compliment you and the other state agencies that have really stepped up and helped make a difference in the streams and in the people's lives to where we can get our county back to where it was before the flood.
And it's also nice to know that 80 cents out of every dollar will be coming here to Haywood. So that's good news as well. I mean, hate to be partial, but I guess I am.
Yeah. And so, some other, we're looking, also, housing, but we're also looking about how do we, minimize future impacts as well, too. We've got a meeting scheduled for later this week with some folks from NC State University that are coming in and looking at our to Canton and up the river there. But how do we minimize these future impacts? So planning for the future for housing, and then how do we mitigate those problems?
I noticed in her presentation, those dwellings will have to be built above the 100-year floodplain or the high water mark. So that is proactive and not doing the same thing again.
Yeah.
Now, you're not allowing anything in the special flood hazard area. You're just allowing at all. I mean, they can't even elevate if they want to, correct?
For our dollars,
Right.
since we are focused on increasing affordable housing
Right.
capacity, we definitely don't want to be putting folks in harm's way.
Right.
Especially since these dollars came because of water. We
I see.
don't want
Yeah.
to have folks back in the water.
Yeah, okay. And there are some folks that have decided to build back there, but they're building smarter with the engineering to where that home will be there when it does flood again. It'll be there. So I think we're building back smarter, and it'll be. I don't think the community will be devastated again like it was before. Clyde wasn't devastated this time like it was before. The little community was, because they built back smarter or didn't build back at all, and they moved out of the floodplain. So I think we're seeing that as these natural disasters happen, that we're, that when it happens again, that the damage won't be as severe, hopefully. So that's all good things.
My hope for this allocation is that this money will be applied toward families that will want to stay here. And by creating affordable housing or workforce housing for our young families, we're perpetuating those next generations. We have an aging population now, and we need young families here. So I'm really excited about how this is going to help our county going forward for years to come.
Is this project all over the whole county? It's not just for the flood area or anything, right?
Correct.
It's for the whole county.
Yes, sir. As you got to peruse the 108-page document, you can see it a little bit overwhelming. Christian came a couple of months ago about having a grants administrator part of our finance team. And when we sat down with this, and Patricia Cantwell's here as our new grants administrator, and so having us being able to do this grant, and having the capacity, and that's been important about how we can grow our county, because I would have been deathly afraid about how do we proceed with this without having the backup of the finance office and Patricia to really help us out. So that's been good. Also want to introduce Andrew Milne from the Dogwood Health Trust, who's another valued partner with us for our housing needs in Haywood County. And so you can see those folks all coming out to hear what the importance of this grant is, and the impact that it'll have, a lasting impact for a long time in our county. So we should be consider ourselves very fortunate. We have this old joke about I'm from Raleigh and I'm here to help you, and but we've certainly got that here. And as you all said about how good state emergency management has been to us, and that old adage has really changed because they did show up and come in to help us. And this was a blessing that we didn't know and didn't even expect. to get. And I'm just really thankful, and I think you all will see the long-term benefits for our community. So thank you.
I love partnerships, and this is just another partnership, so thank you.
Yeah.
We can all work together and get something done.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so can I just move that we approve item one of the regular agenda?
Yes,
Is that
sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll have, entertain that motion.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that's unanimous.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Dave. Okay, item 2 of the regular agenda is to request approval of a contract with McGill Associates, PA, to begin work on Phase 1 of the Haywood County Tropical Storm Fred Watershed Recovery Project. Approval for county manager to execute all required contract documents and approval of associated budget amendment for $800,000 to appropriate funds that will be reimbursable through federal and/or state grants. And Bryant, or I guess you got Mark here, Kathy with McGill. Hey, Mark.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank the board for having me, and I want to thank staff for inviting me. I appreciate it. Mr. Ramey, I've not met you. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.
I'll apologize for the presentation up front. The others, I owe a double apology, I guess. They've already heard this. In all seriousness, I'll be brief, but please interrupt me at any time to ask any question, even a question that we've forgotten since last time. But I know it's been a long night. I don't want to keep anybody here longer than I have to, but ask questions, okay, if you need to. Okay. So, again, this is several funding sources, the Emergency Watershed Protection and STRAP and DMRF. And so this is for primarily the East Fork of the Pigeon, but there's other projects in the county. I think there's 57 total sites with various funding on those sites. McGill, at a glance, again, I think as of last week, we were 145 employees, been in business 39 years as of last week, and 97% of our projects are with local governments, just like Haywood County. Our team, why our team? We appreciate the county going through selection process and selecting our team to propose on this project. Again, we have the bench strength to do that with our subconsultants. Stantec for detailed stream design, stream stabilization, Telex for right of entry, BLE for geotechnical and key mapping and surveying, who specialize in a lot of stream conservation and survey. Okay. Key personnel, again, I'm the team leader for McGill Associates. Our project manager for this project is Scott Burwell, who's done many projects with the county. He's a known quantity, knows your staff. As well as from Water Resources team, we have a lot of experience there in EWP-specific projects. Civil site team, from a project constructability standpoint, we have a heavy construction administration, environmental, who will be doing a lot of the revisiting the damage survey reports. Again, surveying with key mapping and surveying. And again, Stantec, Grant Ginn, and Chris Engel, both engineers with Stantec with a lot of stream experience. And again, easement acquisition with Telex, and field observation support with BLE, Benell Lammons Engineering. Again, project approach and delivery. We've laid this out. I have a specific schedule now. The last time I was here, I didn't. We have developed a schedule now. I have a copy of it. Anybody has any questions, I'll show you a glimpse of it. Might be hard to look at on the screen. I have a paper copy that I'll be glad to go through with anyone after the meeting if you have any specific questions. But basically, we would gain right of entry. We would spend approximately 9 to 12 months on the design and permitting. Prepare bid documents, and then we'd have construction administration. We plan to take the low-hanging fruit, the sites that are pretty self-explanatory and don't have a lot of permitting issues, and try to get those on the street. try to get early success in that and so that we can get the projects completed and get the documentation done and get that reimbursement back to the county. Again, this is a reimbursement program, so that's important as far as the timing. So this clearing and snagging, if you will, to remove woody debris, those will be first, and then the sites that have some complications and stream restoration components or stabilization components. Most of this is stabilization, not restoration. Those will come later. So overall time frame for the debris removal is 9 to 14 months. And that correlates well with the schedule we prepared. And this overall for the stream stabilization is 18 to 26 months, with the project finishing up per our detailed schedule in February of 25. Okay, this is the schedule that I'm discussing here. Again, it's kind of hard to make out here, but I do have a copy. I'll be glad to look at it with you. You can see we have a lot of detail for our Phase 1 project, and then our Phase 2 project is a bit, it's not as detailed, okay? That's because all of the significant events that we've had since August of 2021 have changed those sites. So they may not be where they were before. So we have to go revisit all those, get documentation of all those, and figure out what's going to be involved in each and every site. Put those projects in buckets, if you will, and then bid those out in buckets so that they make sense based on not having to have a contractor's license on some of the clearing and snagging to those who will have to have a contractor's license, so that we can try to use local resources for those as much as possible as well. Experience, briefly, McGill has been involved with Hurricane Florence, citywide EWP project with the city of Wilmington, also with Cumberland County, town of St. Paul's, all due to Hurricane Florence. And of course, McGill Associates, we were also involved with this same project back in 2005 when Hurricanes Francis and Ivan came through, and everyone remembers that, including myself. I was the the day-to-day project manager on this project back in 2005. Again, why choose McGill? Again, we have 39 years now as of last week. Experience. We've assembled a team of experts that have knowledge, experience, and bench strength to get it done. We've got multiple resources depending on when these hit. You have to have construction staff, field staff to observe them, and so that's why we have multiple resources on our team. And we've discussed that openly with everyone. It's going to be whoever's available. Everyone's extremely busy, so whoever's available when these projects are out, we're going to make sure we have the expertise, but we're going to make sure it's covered like it needs to be. And again, we've got great sub-consultants. We have a tested approach. We've done numerous successful projects with the county, and we appreciate that partnership. Again, we're working on recovery projects in town of Canton extensively. We're quite familiar with a lot of the agencies and the permitting processes. So, and so again, just restate our team there. But let me know if you have any questions at all.
Mark, I may ask you this before, but on number 6 of your slideshow there, stream bank channel stabilization, bank and channel stabilization. I know you got it marked critical there, but
I don't know which item 6 is. Right here?
I think you had it, whoever's controlling the
It's
overhead
me.
slideshow. The one right before experience, the one right before.
Right before experience.
Right there.
Right here, yep.
Yeah, down on the bottom down there, items 20, block, that bottom block. Again, I know I harp on this regularly, but, you know, a lot of people had many cubic yards of stone deposited outside the river channel, and the river channel changed, and it's now dry land. But is that going to entail any flood mitigation as far as removing some of those cubic yards of debris that's actually stone? That's certainly reducing the volume of potential water flow in another flood event. Is there room in this scope of this job to help some of those places?
We hope to, on the DSRs, the damage survey reports, that included stabilization, then those will and can include moving material. The clearing and snagging solely, those will not include any type of moving material. So those that have been identified, and I want to say there's 20 or 23, either one of you remember? 23 stabilization sites, something along that line.
I was thinking it was 18, but.
Okay, maybe it is. It's roughly 20 sites that have stabilization efforts involved with those. Of those, once we have to go out and revisit all those DSRs, then we will make an attempt via our design to show what needs to happen from a hydraulic perspective. You know, I've been to some of those sites too, and all the material's been moved to one side, and you have the stream up next to a road.
Yeah.
And then obviously some of those places are even, threatening potentially in the future the DOT road. I know this is not a DOT project, but I hear what you're saying.
I cited the slide above the Crusoe Fire Department. I know you're very familiar with that. I've cited that a couple of times, and that's a classic example. All that rock that came off the mountain still basically in the middle of the river where it used to be, and all that, the river's pushed over there against that road over there in a little narrow channel. So
Right.
That's one thing that I would like to see, if there's any way, within the scope of the project, to be able to mitigate future flood hazards because of that material.
We will certainly attempt to do everything we can to do that, and then it's going to be up to the funding agencies to review our request to see if they agree, concur, or will even provide additional funding. That's just part of that's the hoops you jump through.
Mr. Chairman, if I might add, each site is so specific, it's hard for us to say, generally speaking, this will happen, because if it's permitted on that DSR, then we can take care of it. But if it's out of the scope of that, they're not going to allow us or reimburse us to do that work. We've pushed back several times, and I sort of want to manage people's expectations that this is not going to look like it did the day before the storm. Funds aren't there, and the approval's not there. We fought with FEMA over it. We've also pushed back to NRCS on this, and we're not done. But also, those huge cobble fields, there's not money for it or approval.
On folks doing the work, do you have a list of pre-qualified contractors that do this type of work that you'll be letting these bids out?
We have an idea of people who certainly are familiar with it from the 2005 local resources. We also have people who are more southeast firms and national firms that do this consistently across the country and across the southeast.
Of course, it'll be a competitive bid process, but as far as the local folks that might be interested in doing the work, where could they go to see when these jobs are posted? Where would they be looking to possibly bid on the job?
Well, I mean, we'll certainly, we'll advertise it. We'll certainly put it on the county website as well. So it'll definitely be known.
Our plan is to cast a wide net, and one of the reasons we're breaking them up into different groups is to encourage smaller contractors that could handle maybe 3 or 4 and not 57 sites. I mean, if you bid them all at one time, and then just getting to the work. If you gave one company 57 sites, it would take a long time. So you want to sort of divide and conquer.
I just want to make sure that our local contractors, in the area was going to be made, accessible to the bids and all that. So
we've designed it to allow them to bid and be competitive, we think, and that's our goal, is to try to keep as much money local as possible.
Brian, speak to the, we picked McGill out of we'd sent out an RFP, and there was another group that had submitted I guess, what was who was in that committee?
Well, I knew Christian, myself, Patricia. Christian didn't, I'm sorry, Chris Hill did. Myself, Chris Boyd, Brandon participated by phone. You were there. Dwayne Van Hook from Soil and Water. And I think someone that works with Dwayne, JD, was there. I'm trying to think. We try to have a good representation of
all the stakeholders. And so there was McGill and another group from Greensboro, or?
Yeah, the Greensboro area, but they had a local face, and it was two well-qualified firms.
Yes.
Our experience back in 04, 05 with McGill, and just the breadth of knowledge from all of the engineers that Mark showed you, made us feel like they could get to the project much quicker. Nothing to say that the other firm couldn't, but we felt more comfortable with McGill, and I think as a group, it was unanimous.
I just want to,
On that debris that's already fell off up there where it first started, up there above the fire department he was talking about, will that be removed, all that right there?
Again, if it's included in the DSRs, and then the reason, the DSRs is the damage survey report. That was a lengthy process. And so various people with the state, local resources went out and prepared these DSRs, and then they submitted them to the state with predominantly EWP, but there's other funding as well. And so with STRAP and DMRF and unmet needs and other places. So it just depends on whether it's captured. The specific site may capture a portion of that, and it may not.
The reason I was asking that is because the way it is now, it changes the flow of the stream. If it starts, if we have another pretty heavy rain, it's going to change it completely, flow again, and we're going to have another mess.
That's probably in it. Do you have maps of those?
I do not have
The
a map.
DSR? I mean, not with you, but I mean.
Of course.
Is there somewhere that we could look at those? Or?
Yeah, there's the maps that were created as part of the RFQ process.
Who has that? Or do you?
Well, Dwayne has a map. Dwayne and JD have maps.
Soil and water.
Soil and water.
But we are also, as part of this project, we're creating an interactive map that's going to be on basically via GIS, okay?
But it's not with GIS yet, but
Not yet. Actually, components of it that JD is working on with us.
Okay.
That'd be good. He's prepared to make that map, and then that map, all the information that's collected in the field will be interactive to that. So after we get that initial step done and these site visits are made, we will have a map that we can share with everyone.
Okay.
That's interested.
What's going to be cleaned up there will be where the river used to be, don't it? Most of it, where it's changed up there at the top, well, the part that's going to be cleaned up is what it caused the first time, right? It won't be none of the new, where it changed the flow of it somewhere. That's what I'm trying to figure out is.
Well, again, some of it will. Some of these DSRs are 200 feet long. It's a specific, we'll call it a beaver. It looks like a beaver dam, but obviously it was a huge beaver dam, but that's what it looks like. Some of those are pretty specific. Some of them are 20,000 feet long because there's various woody debris and damage that's across 20,000 feet. So we still have to figure out what that entails before we can get approval from that. And we'll have to we'll have to be careful with design. We have to make sure that we go in and prioritize our efforts to make sure that we try to get something done. And then if we can have alternate items like move additional debris or things like that, then we can consider that. But then we have to go back to the funding agency and ask for more money to do those things.
Right. Because you can't, where we clean up at, we can't change the flow of the stream in any way, can we?
Well, again, there's some. I mean, for instance, with the trout farm specific, everyone knows what the trout farm looks like and what it looks like now.
Yeah.
There's significant work to be done at the trout farm. And we're going to be building some of that back and having stabilization efforts. But the concern there is there's a lot of damage. I don't know if the number that they hung on that project is enough to fund it. So that's the concern.
We were doing some work up there, my surveying crew was.
Yeah.
And they was we were doing some work for a private property owner. He was wondering about some boundaries. They came across right around where the trout farm used to be, and he took a picture of the stream, and there must have been 1 million trout in that pool right there. It was just surreal looking. You know, there were so many trout there, and I guess they all got dispersed up and down the stream, but it ought to be stocked for a long time.
It should be. Maybe I could even catch a fish.
Yeah. You could have that, I guarantee you. Did you see him, Brian?
No, I never heard of that.
You just piqued his interest, though.
I'm sure they're dispersed now, but it was.
I've got a little tendonitis.
And this was months. Yeah, this was months after we'd had the flood. I mean, it's. Brian's going to go home and be dreaming of that. Okay, is there any more questions on that?
I would like to say that I'm a supervisor on soil and water, and so I've seen this process step along from the time Tropical Storm Fred hit, and there's been probably thousands of man-hours, walking those creeks and trying to get money allocated, and there is going to be a shortfall. I mean, this is not going to, it's not going to get it all done, but it's going to make a big improvement in what's happened up there. So, not to jump the agenda, but I'm excited that you folks will be working on it.
Yeah, and I will say, Haywood County staff didn't have to go after all this and get as much done, because I've seen, I won't name any other counties. I'll just tell you I've seen places that have not gone after funding, and it's a mess.
That's right. They've worked very hard. They really have.
I appreciate our staff.
And like you said, I mean, after it's all, or not after it's all said and done, but once we get into the process, we can reach back out and ask for more funding if we see the need. So I think it's just getting there and seeing the need and proving the need to them, and then more funding may be available.
Okay, so any other questions? I'll go ahead and entertain a motion. We approve item 2 of the regular agenda.
So moved.
Okay, is that a first and a second?
First and second.
Okay.
Or second and first.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for coming out and waiting for us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 3 is the one we moved, which is request approval of a resolution rescinding pre-qualification of bidders for the detention center jail expansion as item 3, and this will be item 3. So Frank, go ahead.
You'll recall that in the earlier of the process, in an effort to streamline as much as possible the bidding process for the jail, that we entered into a resolution where we agreed that we would pre-qualify the potential bidders for the job. The idea of pre-qualification is a way of checking the references and the capacity of potential bidders before they bid. And the idea is to first of all, publicize the job a little more ahead of time, and the second is to reduce the burden on the bidding process. Once you have a bid, it makes it easier to make judgments about the capacity and the abilities of the bidders to do the job, okay, by pre-qualifying them ahead of time. It works great if you get at least 3 pre-qualified bidders, and it doesn't work worth a hoot if, as in this case, you got 2 pre-qualified bidders, okay? And it takes 3 bidders on the job to avoid a complicated and time-consuming rebidding process. So what's happened is that our pre-qualification process has ended up limiting us, because after you have a pre-qualification, only the people who pre-qualify can bid on the job. So now with just 2 pre-qualified, we didn't open either one of them. We haven't evaluated either one of them. We've decided, the staff has decided that the fastest way to go from here is to get rid of the pre-qualification for this job. Then when the design documents are ready and they're ready to do their bidding, we'll have we hope a broader interest of contractors to take the job, okay? Possibly maybe having a little lower price because we have more bidders on the job. There's no guarantee of that, of course, but in order technically to open it back up to outfits that have not pre-qualified, we have to take off the requirement that they be pre-qualified to bid on the jail job. And that's what this resolution does. It rescinds the earlier resolution. It'll make it a more conventional kind of job. Anybody who's got an unlimited license can bid when the bid documents are ready. It doesn't lower the quality of the people who are going to be there. It back ends your review of the contractors. Once the bids are open, and if you've got enough to have a valid bid, then you will be doing the more detailed parts of the pre-qualification. What would have been done in the pre-qualification process, you'll do it post-bidding, okay? You're just moving the process over to a little later. It's a pain, but with only two pre-qualifieds, it's really a necessity for this job. So.
Is that not typically how we would do it, though? We would vet them after we received bids?
We'll still vet them. We'll still vet them, but when you go to this pre-qualifying thing, it's actually a way of trying to speed the process up because you get all the vetting of them done even before they bid. Then they bid, and then you open the bids, and who's the low bidder? Well, if you've pre-qualified them, when you open the bids, you know already that they're going to be capable, or you know the strengths or the weaknesses that you're going to further investigate as part of the bidding process. So we tried to make it faster. We're just going to end up being at the regular speed now with elimination of pre-qualification. And again, we have not evaluated these pre-qualified bidders. We have now opened their pre-qualification packages. We didn't have 3, so we just kept them sealed for the 2.
You got 2 bids that are sealed, and they have met the pre-qualifications.
Yeah, they're not bids for the job. They're just these are not
consideration.
No, these are not bids for the job. These are just this is a beauty contest. These folks are demonstrating their capacity.
I got you.
To bid.
I got you.
And so will you disqualify them on the next bidding process?
No, they don't.
Okay.
They're going to be those 2. We'll throw away their pre-qualification stuff.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Those 2 will be in with, we hope, some more.
Gotcha.
In the actual bidding of the job when it comes around.
I understand.
And frankly, by not having pre-qualification, it may have the effect, you don't know, it's like you don't know. It might broaden the interest in the job. It might make it possible to get more bidders because we're not having to, they didn't have to do all this front-end work of pre-qualification.
Sure.
They just have to look at the job when it comes out and decide whether or not they want to do it or not. So your resolution is to rescind the earlier pre-qualification requirement and to, as I say in the bottom there, direct the appropriate staff to solicit bids without pre-qualification of the bidders.
We're not bound to accept the low bidder. If we look at their job and call for references and everybody says they're terrible, they're terrible.
It's an extremely circumscribed process of how you evaluate bidders after the bids have come in. They have to, the bid first of all has to be.
So we're not tying our hands. We're not tying our hands.
Not at
here.
all. In fact, I think what we're doing is opening it up a little bit more.
Yeah.
We're
just
giving us more
giving
flexibility if you want to know the truth.
So
more competition's better.
The statute under normal bidding conditions say you can award the bid to the lowest responsible bidder, meaning, somebody that can do the job responsible-wise. So this is just sending us off kilter from where we wanted to go with the pre-bid qualification because we had really good luck with that through the work at Francis Farm Landfill.
We did.
And this was an attempt to make sure that we got people that had built jails or detention centers in North Carolina. We didn't get the full complement of bidders, and so we need to reverse this resolution so we guarantee ourselves getting at least 3 bidders when it comes time to award the contract.
I'll tell you a piece of history. So in 2007, 2008, we awarded a bid to redo this courthouse. And the contractors, what he did was build food lines. He didn't remodel courthouses. So that's the only project since I've been, and I wasn't a commissioner during those 2 years, but that's the only project where Haywood County's had a problem with a contractor was because he wasn't qualified to do this job. And so I feel real comfortable doing pre-qualification. But if we don't get enough bidders, I don't feel comfortable because there's not enough competition. And if we make sure that they just don't build food lines, then, you know, that's what we need to look at. So, I mean, if somebody comes in like that, then, you know, but we did get, the courthouse construction got delayed, it still got done, because these guys have to submit a bond to see that it gets done. And the bonding company did not want to lose out on, you know, on the shoddy work. So they had to make it right, and they did. Our problem was it just took them a little bit longer. We still got I believe we got a good product in the end because we had other safeguards. But that's kind of what when I saw this and I heard this about not having enough bidders, that's what came to my mind. But in 2009, there was probably pretty good bids, and we just got the lowest bidder, and we kind of got what we paid for, but we did get what we paid for in the end because the bonding company made it good.
And so it will be similar to when we awarded the bid on the architecture, is that they'll present to the board, correct?
No, it's presented to, and the folks who, your architects, engineers, whoever helped you design the bid, works with the owner to evaluate. It's a formal evaluation process of each of but they come to this board for the final yes or no, right?
Yeah, you probably won't get a presentation from any construction company, but the contract, after the architect works on our behalf, will always
We'll
come
make
to
a
the board to
presentation.
award the construction
Okay.
contract. Right.
Yeah.
We have some very competent staff that's got construction experience too, so I'm thankful for that. They'll be looking out for us.
That third explanation, Frank.
Do you want the short answer next time?
We got it.
Gotcha, no problem.
Tracy's keyboard is on fire over here.
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion, we approve new item 3,
So moved.
regular agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any other discussion on that? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Does anybody have anything further for the board? That's all we have, correct? Okay, I'll entertain a motion, we adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Okay, is there a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned, thank you.